The escape pod tore through the canopy like a meteor, ripping branches and vines as it plummeted toward the jungle floor. Inside, Rith clutched the restraints with all four of his hands, his skin flashing pale blue with terror. The Kalash researcher had spent 15 cycles studying distant worlds from the safety of orbital stations, never imagining he would crash on one that metal screamed against wood. The pod bounced once, twice, then embedded itself in soft earth. Rith gasped, his breathing slits working overtime as emergency lights bathed the cramped interior in red. He checked the beacon with trembling fingers. Cracked. The display flickered and died. Outside, the jungle pressed close. Through the viewport, Rith saw vegetation unlike anything in the database. Massive trees with purple bark stretched upward, their leaves creating a thick ceiling that blocked most sunlight. Strange calls echoed through the humid air, some high and whistling, others deep and guttural. Rith forced himself to move. The pod's air supply would last perhaps 2 days. He needed to find water, shelter, and hope that someone received his distress signal before the crash. He gathered the emergency pack and keyed the hatch release. Heat hit him like a physical force. The air tasted thick and green, full of scents people had no names for. Rith stepped on a soil that seemed to pulse with life. Insects the size of his hand scattered at his approach. Something howled in the distance that he walked for hours, navigating by the sun's dim glow through the canopy. His feet, designed for the smooth floors of research vessels, ached in the uneven terrain. Twice he stopped to drink from his emergency supply. Once he thought he saw eyes watching from the shadows, but when he looked directly, nothing was there. The attack came without warning. One moment Rith was pushing through a wall of ferns. The next, the world exploded in motion and sound. A creature burst from the undergrowth, all muscle and teeth and rage. It stood twice his height, covered in scales that gleamed like wet stone. Four legs propelled it forward with terrifying speed. Its head was broad and flat, filled with teeth meant for tearing. Rith fell backward, his scream caught in his throat. This was how he would die, alone on an unnamed world, consumed by a beast that shouldn't exist. The creature lunged, jaws opening impossibly wide. Then something slammed into the beast from the side. The impact sent both figures tumbling. Rith scrambled away, his eyes struggling to process what he was seeing. A smaller figure, barely half the beast's size, had tackled it mid-leap. The figure rolled with practiced ease and came up in a crouch that IT was a human. Rith had seen humans before in diplomatic meetings and trade negotiations. They were uncommon in the Galactic Council, their planet having joined only recently. This one was female, he thought, with dark skin and hair pulled back tight. She wore simple clothing, torn and stained, with a belt holding various tools and weapons. The beast recovered quickly, shaking its massive head. It roared, spraying saliva. The human didn't retreat. Instead, she drew a long blade from her belt and smiled. The creature charged. The human moved like flowing water, stepping aside at the last possible moment. Her blade flashed, opening a red line along the beast's flank. It bellowed in pain and rage, spinning faster than something so large should move. What followed was the most brutal thing Rith had ever witnessed. The human fought with no wasted movement, each strike calculated and precise. She used the beast's size against it, staying close where its teeth couldn't reach. When it tried to crush her with its weight, she rolled away. When it lunged, she sidestepped and cut. Blood painted the jungle floor. The beast's movements grew slower, more desperate. The human showed no emotion, just cold focus. Finally, she saw her opening. As the creature lunged one last time, she dropped low and drove her blade up through the soft tissue under its jaw. The beast's momentum carried it forward. It crashed into a tree and slid down, twitched twice, and went still. The human pulled her blade free and wiped it clean on the creature's hide. Only then did she turn to Rith. Her eyes were brown and calm, as if she hadn't just killed something 4 times her size. "You okay?" she asked in passable galactic standard. Rith couldn't speak. He could only stare as she knelt beside the dead beast and began examining it with professional interest. "Good meat on this one," she said, almost to herself. She drew a smaller knife from her belt. Should last us a couple weeks if we preserve it right. Horror dawned in Ritha's mind. You're going to eat it? The human looked up, confusion crossing her face. Well, yeah. Why else would I kill it? She paused, reading something in his expression. Oh, you're Kalash, right? Herbivores. Rith managed a weak nod. The human returned her attention to the beast. She made a long cut along its belly, her hands moving with practiced skill. Aimane. Been surveying this planet for about 3 months. You crash here? Yes, Rith whispered. My pod. My beacon is broken. That's rough. And worked as she talked, her blade peeling back high to reveal muscle beneath. Lucky I heard the impact. This jungle doesn't forgive mistakes. She glanced at him again. You're going to want to look away for this part. Gets messy. But Rith couldn't look away. He watched, transfixed and nauseated, as Enfield dressed the creature with the same casual efficiency someone might use to repair a computer. She explained what she was doing, pointing out which organs were useful, which parts had the best meat, how to avoid contaminating the flesh. Grew up helping my dad hunt, she said, cutting away a large section of muscle. He always said if you're going to take a life, you honor it by using everything. Waste nothing. But it's dead, Rith managed. You killed it. And paused and looked at him with something like sympathy. Yeah, that's how it works. I'm a predator. So is this thing. It would have eaten you without a second thought. I killed it instead, and now we both get to live. She stood, her arms red to the elbows. That's nature. That's survival. She cleaned her hands with water from a canteen, then shouldered a pack Rith hadn't noticed before. My camp's about an hour north. You can come with me if you want. I've got shelter, fire, and once I process this meat, plenty of food. She smiled, and it seemed genuine. You'll be safe there. Rith looked at the dead beast, at the human covered in its blood, at the darkening jungle around them. He thought about his broken beacon and the long night ahead. Okay, he said quietly, and nodded and began cutting sections of meat, wrapping them in large leaves. Good choice. Come on, we're losing light. And trust me, you don't want to be out here after dark. As Rith followed the human through the jungle, carrying supplies while she hauled portions of the beast she had killed and would consume, he realized his research into human culture had been woefully inadequate. These creatures were nothing like the Kalash. They were something far more terrifying. En's camp sat in a small clearing where 3 massive trees formed a natural triangle. She had strung tarps between them, creating shelter from the rain that fell most afternoons. A fire pit occupied the center, surrounded by flat stones. Various tools hung from branches, and a water filtration system dripped steadily into containers. Rith watched and built up the fire with practiced movements. She arranged the wood in a specific pattern, explaining something about airflow and heat distribution. He understood the words, but not the ease with which she handled flames. Fire was something the Kalash used in controlled laboratory settings, not as a casual cooking tool. The meat sizzled when she placed it on a metal grate over the flames. Fat dripped and flared, sending up smoke that smelled both appealing and wrong to Ritha's senses. And turned the pieces regularly, checking them with the same attention she had given to killing the beast. You eat, right? She asked. I mean, I know you don't eat meat, but you need food? Yes, Rith said. Vegetation, fruits, seeds, leaves, and pointed to a collection of plants she had gathered. Most of those are edible. Tested them myself over the past few weeks. The blue ones are sweet, kind of like berries. The pale ones are starchy, filling. She smiled. You're welcome to anything that's not trying to kill us. Rith selected some of the fruits carefully. They were strange shapes, nothing like the cultivated produce from Kalash farms, but his scanner confirmed they were safe. He ate slowly, watching and prepare her meal. She removed the meat from the fire and cut a piece. Steam rose from the interior. She bit into it, chewed thoughtfully, and nodded to herself. Good protein. This'll keep our energy up. Does it not disturb you? Rith asked quietly. What? Eating something that was alive. That had thoughts, perhaps. That fought to survive. And set down her food and looked at him seriously. Yeah, it does. Every time. She poked at the fire with a stick. My dad taught me that if it doesn't bother you at least a little, you're doing it wrong. Taking a life should mean something. Then why do it? Because I need to eat to survive. My body needs protein, fats, nutrients that I can't get just from plants. Well, I could, but not easily and definitely not stranded on an alien planet. She gestured around the jungle. Out here, you eat or you die. That's the deal. Rith processed this. On his homeworld, food came from vast agricultural complexes. The idea of hunting for sustenance seemed primitive, barbaric even. Yet, and spoke of it with a strange reverence. On Earth, and continued, humans are omnivores. We eat plants and meat both. We evolved that way. Our teeth, our digestive system, everything about us is designed for it. She smiled slightly. Kids on Earth learn this stuff young. My dad took me fishing when I was 6 years old. 6 cycles. 6 years. We count different, but yeah, I was really young. I cried the first time I caught a fish and had to kill it. She stared into the fire, remembering. Dad didn't make fun of me. He said crying meant I understood what I was doing. He showed me how to do it quickly, how to make sure the fish didn't suffer. Then he taught me how to clean it, cook it, and we ate it together. Your parent taught you to kill at such a young age. He taught me to survive, to respect what I eat, to understand that life feeds on life, and that's okay as long as you're grateful and you don't waste it. And picked up her meal again. Every part of that beast I killed, I'm using it. Meat for food, hide for repairing gear, bones for tools. Nothing goes to waste. Rith watched as she continued eating. There was no savagery in it, no wild feasting. She ate with the same methodical care she applied to everything else. Between bites, she worked on the hide she had brought back, scraping it clean with a curved tool. How can your species feel compassion? Rith asked, while also being predators. And looked up, surprised by the question. Why couldn't we? Being a predator doesn't mean being cruel. Lions aren't evil. Wolves aren't monsters. They're just living the way they evolved to live. She set aside the hide. Humans learned pretty quick that working together made us better hunters. We bonded in groups, protected each other, shared food. That's where compassion comes from. Same place as the hunting. I don't understand. Look, I killed that beast to protect you and to feed us. Those aren't separate things in my head. I protect what's mine, and right now, you're part of my camp. That makes you someone I look after. She grinned. Pack bonding, we call it. Humans are really good at it. We even bond with other predators. Other predators. Dogs. They evolved from wolves. Thousands of years ago, humans and wolves figured out we were better together. We hunted as a team. Over time, they became dogs, and we became partners. Best friends, even. En's expression softened. I had a dog growing up. Big shepherd mix named Bear. He would have died for me, and I would have died for him. Rith tried to imagine his people forming bonds with carnivores. The idea was absurd, yet, and spoke of it with such warmth. The galaxy fears humans, Rith said softly. I've heard the talk in council meetings. They call your planet a death world. They say humans are dangerous. They're not wrong, and didn't look offended. Earth is rough compared to most garden worlds. We've got extreme weather, predators, diseases, natural disasters. Humans evolved to handle all of it. Yeah, that makes us dangerous, but also makes us survivors. And survivors look out for each other. She stood and stretched, then began preparing more meat for preservation. She cut it into strips, coating them with salt from her supplies. I'll smoke these overnight. Should last a few weeks if the humidity doesn't get to them. You do this often? Hunt and preserve. Often enough. My family went camping a lot when I was young. Dad was big on teaching self-sufficiency. How to hunt, fish, build shelter, purify water, start fires. She worked as she talked, her hands never stopping. He'd say you never know when those skills might save your life. Guess he was right. Rith watched the fire shadows dance across En's face. She had killed a massive predator with her bare hands and a blade, then calmly butchered and cooked it. Now she spoke of childhood camping trips as if they were normal. The contrast was staggering. Are all humans like you? He asked and laughed. No, lots of humans live in cities, never hunt, buy all their food prepackaged. But the skills are still there, buried in our DNA. Put a human in a survival situation, and those old instincts wake up pretty fast. She looked at him. That's what makes us good allies, by the way. We're loyal to our pack, and we fight like hell to protect them. Even aliens you just met. You needed help. I helped. That's what humans do. She arranged the meat strips on racks near the fire. Tomorrow I'll show you how to set up basic water collection. Your people might need those skills someday. As night fell completely, Rith sat across the fire from and eating strange fruits while she consumed the beasts she had killed. The jungle around them filled with sounds, howls and clicks and rustles, and seemed unconcerned, confident in her defenses. Get some sleep, she said eventually. I'll take first watch. Wake me if you hear anything big moving around. Rith curled up under the tarp she had indicated, his mind racing. He was stranded on an alien world with a human predator who had adopted him into her pack. She would teach him, feed him, and protect him with the same fierce efficiency she had shown in killing. The galaxy was right to fear humans, he thought, as sleep claimed him. But perhaps they were wrong about why. Rain drummed against the tarp above Rith's head, a constant percussion that had started before dawn. He woke to find and already moving about the camp, checking the smoking meat and reinforcing the shelter. Water ran in streams around the clearing, but the fires somehow stayed lit under a carefully constructed cover. Morning, and said, noticing him stir. Storm should pass in a few hours. Good day to stay put and work on your beacon. Rith pulled the damaged device from his pack. The casing was cracked, the display dark. He had tools, but the delicate circuitry had taken damage in the crash, and leaned over his shoulder, watching with interest. Circuit boards fried, she observed. You got spares? No. I would need to fabricate replacements, but I lack the equipment. And disappeared into her shelter and returned with a small toolkit. Might be able to jury-rig something. I'm no engineer, but I can solder. She sat beside him. Let's take a look. They worked together through the morning, his hands surprisingly steady as she helped repair connections. She asked questions about the beacon's function, absorbing the technical information quickly. Rith found himself impressed by her adaptability. Your people learn many skills? He asked. Depends on the person. I was always curious, liked taking things apart to see how they worked. Drove my mom crazy, and grinned. But yeah, humans tend to be generalists. We learn a bit of everything rather than specializing too early. The Kalash focus on single disciplines. I am a xenobiologist. That is all I studied for 20 cycles. Must be nice being an expert. But what happens if you need to fix a beacon or hunt food or build shelter? And pointed to a damaged connector. Hand me that wire there. Rith passed it to her. We have specialists for each task. And when the specialists aren't around, the question hung in the humid air. Rith had no answer. His entire civilization was built on the assumption that help was always available, that systems would function, that food would appear. Out here, those assumptions meant nothing, and worked in silence for a while, then spoke quietly. Earth taught humans that nothing's guaranteed. Crops fail. Storms destroy homes. Animals migrate. If you only know one thing, you die when circumstances change. She soldered a connection. So we teach our kids everything we can. How to grow food and how to hunt it. How to build and how to repair. How to fight and how to make peace. It sounds exhausting. It is, but it keeps us alive. And sat back, examining their work. Try it now. Rith activated the beacon. The display flickered, showing garbled text, then stabilized. A weak signal icon appeared. He felt his breathing slits flutter with relief. It's working. Low power, but functional. Good. We'll boost the signal once the storm passes. And stood and stretched. Hungry. They ate together, Rith with his gathered fruits and with strips of smoked meat. The rain continued its steady rhythm, and used the time to explain more about Earth, about the different environments humans had learned to survive. Deserts where water is scarce. Frozen tundra where nothing grows. Jungles like this where everything wants to eat you. Humans live in all of them. She tore off a piece of meat. We adapt. That's our thing. But you still kill to survive. Yeah, we do. And met his gaze. I know that bothers you. Your people evolved without predation, so the whole concept seems wrong. But Rith, predators aren't evil. We're part of the ecosystem, same as herbivores. How can you say that after what I saw you do? And was quiet for a moment. Let me tell you about deer. On Earth, in some places, humans killed off all the wolves. Thought we were making things safer. You know what happened? Rith shook his head. The deer population exploded. They ate everything, stripped the vegetation bare. Then they starved by the thousands, slow and painful. The whole ecosystem collapsed because we removed the predators. She leaned forward. Predators aren't the enemy of life. We're part of it. We keep populations healthy, strong. Without us, everything falls apart. So you believe your hunting is necessary? I believe balance is necessary. Humans learned that the hard way after we nearly destroyed our own planet with overhunting and pollution. We had to make a choice, get smarter or go extinct, and poked at the fire. We chose smarter. Now we hunt sustainably, preserve habitats, protect endangered species. We became predators who think. Rith considered this. And yet you still teach your young to kill. We teach them to survive, to understand where food comes from, to respect the sacrifice animals make. N's voice grew softer. My dad made me say thank you every time I caught a fish or hunted game. Not just words, real gratitude. He said if you can't feel that, you shouldn't be hunting. Thank the creature you killed for giving its life so I could live. Yeah, and looked at him. I know it sounds strange to you, but that gratitude, that respect, it makes us better hunters and better people. We don't kill for fun. We don't waste. We take only what we need. The rain began to ease, thinning to a drizzle, and checked the smoking meat, turning pieces to ensure even preservation. Her movements were practiced, automatic. There's something else, she said. Being a predator means understanding death, really understanding it. That life ends, that everything dies eventually. A lot of species avoid thinking about that. The Kalash believe death should be delayed as long as possible. Sure, that makes sense. But humans, we can't avoid it. We see it every time we hunt, every time we eat. It makes us appreciate life more. And smiled slightly. We fight harder to protect what we love because we know how fragile it is. Is that why you helped me? Part of it. Also, you needed help and I could give it. That's reason enough. She began packing away the dried meat. Humans are weird that way. We'll fight to the death for people we just met if we decide they're worth protecting. How do you decide? And shrugged. Instinct mostly. You weren't a threat. You needed help. Those two things were enough. She grinned. Plus, you're kind of growing on me. You ask good questions. Rith felt warmth spread through his body, a Kalash response to acceptance. This human predator had adopted him into her pack with barely a thought. She shared her food, her knowledge, her protection, expecting nothing in return. On my world, Rith said quietly, we have a saying, the strong tree shelters the weak seedling. I think I'm beginning to understand it differently now. How so? I thought it meant the established should protect the vulnerable out of duty. But you protect me because you choose to. Because your strength means nothing if you don't use it for others. He looked at Anne. That's what makes humans dangerous, isn't it? Not your ability to kill, but your choice of what to protect. And smiled. And for the first time, Rith saw real pride in her expression. You're catching on? Yeah, humans are predators. We can kill, we can consume, we can destroy. But we can also build, protect, and nurture. The trick is knowing when to do which. The rain stopped. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, turning the wet jungle into something beautiful and glistening, and stood and offered Rith her hand, pulling him to his feet. Come on, let's boost that beacon signal. Time to get you home. As Rith worked alongside the human, adjusting the beacon's antenna array, he realized something profound. The galaxy feared humans because they were predators, yes. But the real power lay in what N had shown him over these days. Humans chose their prey and their pack with equal ferocity, and once you were in the pack, they would move mountains to keep you safe. The sound came at dusk, a low rumbling that made the ground vibrate. N froze mid-motion, her hand going to the blade at her belt. Rith felt his skin flash pale with fear. What is that? Trouble. And moved to the edge of camp, scanning the darkening jungle. Big trouble. That's a pack call. Through the trees, Rith saw movement. Shapes circled the clearing, staying just beyond the firelight. They were similar to the beast and had killed days before, but larger. Much larger. Their scales caught the fading light as they prowled. How many? Rith whispered, and counted silently, her eyes tracking each shadow. 7. Maybe 8. She backed toward the fire, never taking her eyes off the perimeter. Too many to fight head-on. Then we run. Where? They're faster than us in the jungle, and they hunt in packs. They'll separate us, take us down one at a time. N's jaw tightened. No, we defend. Make this camp too costly to attack. She moved with sudden purpose, grabbing burning branches from the fire and jamming them into the ground around the clearing's edge. The flames created a rough circle of light and heat. The prowling shapes backed away slightly, but didn't leave. Fire, and grab more wood. Most predators fear fire. It's not natural, not something they understand. She handed Rith a burning branch. Keep these lit. If they get close, shove fire in their faces. Rith took the branch with trembling hands. And if that doesn't work, then we improvise, and was already cutting vines, weaving them between trees. She moved like someone preparing for battle, every action deliberate. Help me with this. We need obstacles, anything to slow them down. They worked frantically as darkness fell completely, and constructed simple traps using sharpened stakes and tension vines. She scattered caltrops made from sharpened bone around the perimeter. All the while, she explained what she was doing, teaching even in crisis. Predators are smart, but they think in patterns. They'll test the weakest points first, look for easy prey. She tied off another vine. We make everywhere look dangerous. They might decide we're not worth it. My animals are unpredictable. Could work, could not. And pulled her blade free and checked its edge. Either way, we're ready. She handed Rith a spear, crude but functional, made from a straight branch and a sharpened stone. You know how to use this? No. Point the sharp end at anything that gets close. If something lunges, thrust forward and sideways. Don't try to hold your ground. You'll get knocked down. She demonstrated the motion. Stick and move. Got it. Rith gripped the spear, feeling its unfamiliar weight. 3 days ago, he had never held a weapon. Now, he stood in a jungle clearing, preparing to fight for his life. The first attack came without warning. One of the beasts charged the perimeter, testing the defenses. It hit a caltrop and roared, jumping back, and didn't move, just watched, learning. They're probing, she said calmly. Try to find our weakness. Stay alert. 2 more rushed from different directions. One triggered a vine trap, yelping as stakes swung into its flank. The other got close to the fire line before and hurled a burning branch directly at its face. It retreated, shaking its head. Good, and muttered. They're scared of the fire. That helps. The pack changed tactics. They stopped testing and started circling, staying just beyond weapon range. Their calls filled the night, a chorus of hunger and intelligence. They were communicating, planning. They're going to rush us all at once, and said. She grabbed more weapons, a short blade for her offhand, another spear within reach. When they do, stay near the fire. Don't let them surround you. I'm not a fighter. You are tonight. And looked at him, and her expression was fierce. You're part of my pack, Rith. That means you survive, whatever it takes. The rush came from 3 sides simultaneously, and moved to intercept the largest group, her blade flashing in the firelight. She caught the first beast across the snout, drawing blood. The second she dodged, letting it slam into a tree. The third got close enough to snap at her, but she rolled under its jaws and drove her blade up into its throat. Rith barely registered her fight. A beast was coming straight for him, smaller than the others, but fast. He thrust the spear forward and had shown him more panic than technique. The point caught the creature's shoulder, not deep, but enough to make it veer off. It came around for another pass. Rith backed toward the fire, spear extended. This time when it lunged, he sidestepped and felt teeth graze his side. Pain flared bright and sharp. He jabbed blindly and felt the spear connect with something solid. The beast yelped and retreated. Rith looked down at the tear in his suit, the blue-green blood seeping through. His first wound, his first real violence, and appeared beside him, breathing hard. "You okay?" "I think so." "Good. 2 down, 5 to go." She pulled him back toward the center of camp. "They're getting desperate. The pack's losing members. They'll either retreat or go all in." The beasts chose all in. They came from every direction at once, abandoning strategy for overwhelming force, and met them with controlled fury, her blade never still. She fought like water, flowing between attacks, striking where gaps appeared. Rith saw her take down another beast, her knife finding the soft spot behind its jaw. But there were too many. One got past her guard and charged Rith. He thrust his spear with both hands, felt it sink deep into the creature's chest. The beast's momentum drove him backward. They hit the ground together, the spear trapped between them. The beast's jaws snapped inches from Rith's face. He could smell its breath, feel its hot blood on his hands. Then, and was there, dragging the dying creature off him, finishing it with a quick strike. "Stay down," she ordered, turning to face the remaining beasts point to left. They circled her warily, having learned respect for the small human, and was bleeding from several cuts, her movements slightly slower. But her eyes held no fear, only calculation. She feinted left, and when one beast committed, she spun right and opened its side. It collapsed, thrashing. The last beast backed away, realizing it was alone. It looked at its dead packmates, at the blood-soaked human, and made a decision. It ran, and watched it go, not pursuing. When the sounds of its retreat faded, she finally lowered her weapons. Her shoulders sagged, adrenaline leaving her system. "Is it over?" Rith asked from the ground. "For now," and came over and helped him up, checking his wound. "You did good. Held your ground. I was terrified. So was I. Terror keeps you sharp." She began tending to his injury, cleaning it with water and applying medicine from her pack. "But you fought anyway. That's what matters." Around them, the clearing was a mess of blood and bodies, and moved among the dead beasts, checking each one. "We'll need to move camp tomorrow. The blood will attract scavengers. But first, we salvage." "Salvage?" She gestured to the corpses. "All this meat. Waste not, want not." Despite her exhaustion, and began the familiar work of field dressing the kills. "Help me if you can. I'll show you what to do." Rith watched her work, this human who had just fought off a pack of predators and was now calmly butchering them. Her hands were steady, her motions practiced. She hummed softly as she worked, some tune from her world. "How can you be so calm?" he asked, and looked up surprised. "This is what I do. Fight when I have to, then get back to survival." She returned to her work. "Dad used to say the battle's not over until you've taken care of the aftermath. Treat your wounds, secure your resources, prepare for tomorrow. Your father taught you battle tactics. He taught me to survive. Sometimes that means fighting." She cut away a prime section of meat. "Sometimes it means running. Sometimes it means making friends." She smiled at Rith. "You did all 3 tonight." As the night deepened and they worked side by side, Rith understood something new, and wasn't calm despite the violence. She was calm because she had accepted it as part of survival. She fought without rage, killed without pleasure, and moved on without guilt. That was the human way. Not savagery, but practicality. Not cruelty, but necessity. And in the flickering firelight, covered in blood, both his and others, Rith realized he was learning to think the same way. N's injury looked worse in the morning light. A deep gash along her ribs, poorly bandaged, seeping through the cloth. She moved carefully, favoring her left side, though she tried to hide it. "You need proper medical attention," Rith said. "I'll live." Had worse. But her skin was pale, and sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool morning air. They relocated camp as planned, moving to higher ground where the air was clearer, and directed while Rith did most of the physical work, carrying supplies and setting up the new shelter. She talked him through each step, turning necessity into another lesson. "Elevation gives you sight lines," she explained, wincing as she sat. "And drainage. Water flows down, so camps on high ground stay drier. She gestured to the trees. Those branches overhead, see how they lean? Wind comes from that direction. Position your shelter to block it. Rith followed her instructions, surprised at how much he was learning. 3 days ago, he couldn't start a fire. Now he was selecting camp locations based on tactical advantages. Once the camp was functional, and let him examine her wound properly. It was deep, the edges angry and swollen. Rith used supplies from both their packs, cleaning and re-bandaging with greater care. You should rest, he said. Can't. Too much to do. But when she tried to stand, she wavered and sat back down heavily. Then tell me what to do. I'll handle it. And looked at him with something like pride. All right. The meat needs smoking. Fire needs tending. Water needs filtering. She talked him through each task, staying alert despite her obvious pain. Rith worked steadily, finding rhythm in the routine. He checked the smoking meat, adjusted the fire, collected water. Tasks that seemed impossible days ago now felt manageable. And watched, offering corrections when needed, praise when earned. You're a quick learner, she said. I had a good teacher. Rith arranged more wood on the fire. You teach like you hunt. Methodically. My dad again. He believed in teaching through doing. Show once, guide twice, watch the third time. She smiled weakly. Said that's how humans have passed down knowledge for thousands of years. Your father sounds wise. He is, probably worried sick if he knows I'm out here. En's expression grew distant. He taught me and my sister everything. How to fish, how to track, how to read weather signs. Mom thought he was paranoid, but he said you never know when the world might change. You have a sister? Yeah, older. She's a doctor back on Earth. Took the peaceful path, and chuckled, then grimaced at the pain it caused. Dad was proud of both of us. Said one daughter would heal, and one would protect, and either way, the family had value to offer. Rith stirred the fire, thinking, your culture values both skills equally? Should. Healing's as important as fighting. Maybe more. And shifted, trying to find a comfortable position. But when things go wrong, when people are in danger, you need someone willing to stand between them and whatever's coming. Like you did for me. Like I do for anyone in my pack. She said it simply, as if it were obvious. They spent the day in quiet routine and resting while Rith managed the camp. As evening approached, her communication device crackled to life. Static at first, then something more. Distress signal, Kalash research vessel, coordinates. The voice faded in and out, and grabbed the device, adjusting frequencies. Say again. This is Independent Surveyor and Chun. Under attack, raiders, Haxor species, requesting assistance. Rith felt his blood freeze. A Kalash vessel. His people, under attack. And checked the coordinates displayed on screen. 2 days away with my backup shuttle. Haxor don't take prisoners long. They'll process the crew for slave markets within hours. We have to help them. And looked at her injured side, then at Rith. I'm in no shape for a rescue mission. But they'll die. And it was quiet for a long moment. Then she started gathering her weapons, checking each one. Yeah, they will. So I guess we're going. You're wound. Will slow me down, but won't stop me. She pulled on her gear with practiced efficiency. Your people are in trouble. That makes them part of the pack now. She met his eyes, and humans protect their pack. They broke camp quickly, and moving with determination despite obvious pain. She led Rith to a hidden ravine where her backup shuttle sat camouflaged under netting and branches. It was small, built for one person, cramped for two. It'll be tight, but we'll manage. And ran pre-flight checks while explaining her plan. The Haxor are slavers, not warriors. Strong, yeah, but they rely on intimidation and surprise. They're not expecting resistance. How do you know this? Briefing files. I read up on every hostile species in this sector before my survey started. She fired up the engines. Information is survival. The shuttle lifted off, breaking through the canopy and climbing toward orbit. Rith watched the jungle fall away, the planet that had nearly killed him becoming small below. What's your plan? He asked. Direct assault. Fast and brutal. And plotted their course, her fingers steady on the controls. The Haxor will have the Kalash crew contained, probably in their own cargo bay. I go in hard, make them think I'm a military strike team. Confusion and fear are force multipliers. You're one person. They don't know that. And smile grimly. Humans are good at bluffing. And if the bluff fails, I'm good at fighting too. They traveled in silence for hours, the shuttle eating distance at maximum burn, and used the time to prepare, checking weapons, planning approach vectors, memorizing the Kalash ship's layout from database files. You know you might die doing this, Rith said quietly. Might, but probably won't, and didn't look up from her preparations. And even if I do, those Kalash crew members get to live. That's a trade I can make. Why? You don't know them. They're not your species. And looked at him then, really looked at him. You asked me once how humans can be predators and still feel compassion. This is how. We choose what to protect. Sometimes it's family. Sometimes it's friends. Sometimes it's strangers who need help. She returned to her weapons. We're raised this way, Rith, to stand between danger and those who can't fight back. Even when it costs you everything. Especially then. That's when it matters most. Rith watched this human prepare for battle on behalf of his people. Her movements smooth despite the wound in her side. She was one small person against an unknown number of raiders, and she showed no hesitation. I want to help, he said. You will. I'll need you to interface with the Kalash systems, get them organized for evacuation, and handed him a simple weapon. And if things go bad, you'll need to defend yourself. I've never fought for others, only for my own survival. Then it's time to learn. That's what pack means. You fight for each other. She smiled. Don't worry. You're a quick learner, remember? The Kalash vessel appeared on scanners ahead, a research ship similar to the one Rith had served on. Smaller ships surrounded it, Haxor raiders like scavengers around a wounded animal, and checked her weapons one final time. Here's where it gets interesting. You ready? Rith gripped his weapon, thinking of everything and had taught him. About survival, about protection, about choosing who to stand with. He thought about his people trapped on that ship, waiting for rescue that might never come. Yes, he said, I'm ready. And smile was fierce and proud. Good. Let's go save your people. The shuttle accelerated toward the battle ahead, carrying one wounded human and one terrified Kalash researcher who was learning what it meant to be part of a pack. The raiders had numbers and weapons, but they had never faced a human protecting her own. The shuttle hit the Kalash vessel's docking port with a controlled crash that rattled Rith's teeth, and was already moving before the airlock finished cycling, her weapons ready, her injured side taped tight. Stay close. Follow my lead. If I tell you to run, you run. She checked the corridor beyond, then moved forward with the fluid grace of a predator. Let's go hunting. The interior was chaos. Haxor raiders stomped through corridors, their heavy footfalls echoing on metal floors. They were massive beings, easily twice in size, with thick armored hides and brutal strength. 3 of them guarded the main junction ahead, and didn't hesitate. She pulled a device from her belt, a flashbang she had cobbled together from ship components, and tossed it into their midst. The explosion was blinding, deafening. Before the raiders could recover, and was among them, Rith watched in stunned silence as she moved. The blade in her hand found seams in armor with surgical precision. She used their size against them, staying low, staying mobile. When one reached for her, she rolled under its arm and severed the tendon behind its knee. When another tried to grab her, she drove her blade up through the soft tissue under its jaw, 0.15 seconds. 3 raiders down, and kept moving, never stopping to admire her work. Cargo bays this way. That's where they'll have your people. They ran through corridors, and tactical knowledge guiding them through the ship's layout. Twice more they encountered raiders. Twice more and fought with that same brutal efficiency, turning corners into killing zones, using narrow passages to negate their size advantage. How are you doing this? Rith gasped as they ran. Training, practice, adrenaline, and checked around a corner. And a lot of really poor tactical decisions on their part. They weren't expecting resistance. The cargo bay doors loomed ahead, guarded by 5 Haxor, too many to fight directly, and pulled Rith back, thinking fast. Okay, new plan. You're going to walk up to that door and get their attention. What? They know Kalash are harmless. They won't see you as a threat. And press the device into his hand. When you're close enough, trigger this. It's a smoke grenade. Then hit the deck. And I'll be right behind you. Literally. And check your weapons. Trust me. Rith wanted to argue, but something in Anne's eyes stopped him. This was what she did, what she had been trained to do. He nodded and stepped into the corridor. The Haxor saw him immediately. They laughed, harsh and grating sounds. One called out in broken Galactic Standard. Another herbivore. Come, we add you to the others. Rith walked forward on trembling legs, closer, closer. When he was 10 feet away, he triggered the device and dropped. Smoke billowed instantly, thick and choking. Through it, and came like a ghost. Rith heard rather than saw what happened next. Shouts of confusion. The wet sound of blades finding flesh. A gurgling scream cut short. Bodies hitting the deck. Then silence. The smoke cleared, and stood among 5 dead raiders, barely breathing hard. Blood spattered her clothes, but little of it seemed to be hers. Good job, she said, helping Rith to his feet. Now, let's get your people out. The cargo bay held 14 Kalash researchers, huddled together in terror. They shrank back when and entered, seeing only another predator covered in blood. Rith stepped forward quickly. She's with me. She saved us. We need to evacuate now. The senior researcher, an elder named Voth, stared at and with wide eyes. A human. Why would a human help us? Because your people needed help, and said simply. She was already working on the bay's external controls. We got maybe 5 minutes before the rest of the raiders realize what's happening. There's an escape shuttle 2 decks down. Move. The Kalash hesitated, instinct warring with survival. Rith understood their fear. He had felt it too, watching and consumed the beast. But he had learned something in the jungle that they needed to understand now. She has fought through this entire ship to reach us, he said firmly. She's injured and outnumbered, but she came anyway. We trust her, or we die here. Those are the options. Voth looked between Rith and then made his decision. We go, and led them through the ship, moving fast but careful. The Kalash struggled to keep pace and used to such physical exertion. When raiders appeared ahead and put herself between them and the researchers without hesitation, her blade flashing in the corridor lights. They lost 2 minutes fighting through to the shuttle bay and took a nasty cut across her shoulder, but kept moving, kept fighting, kept putting herself between danger and those she had chosen to protect. The escape shuttle was small, meant for 6. 14 Kalash and 2 others made it cramped and dangerous, and didn't care. She packed them in, helped secure the most fragile, explained basic emergency procedures to Voth. Get clear of the ship and signal for council rescue. They patrol this sector every 6 hours. She checked the shuttle systems. You'll be fine. You're not coming. Rith asked. Someone needs to make sure those raiders don't follow. And I've got a ship to recover. And smiled, tired but genuine. Besides, you don't need me anymore. You know how to survive now. And go. That's an order. She stepped back from the shuttle. Take care of your people, Rith. And remember what you learned. The shuttle launched before Rith could argue further. Through the viewport, he watched and become smaller, a lone figure standing in the bay, already turning to face whatever came next. Voth spoke quietly beside him. That human risked everything for us. For strangers. Yes, Rith said. Why? Rith thought about everything he had witnessed. The hunt, the teaching, the protection, and fighting beasts in the jungle, fighting raiders in corridors, always putting others before herself. He thought about her words, about pack and family and the human way. Because that's how humans are raised, he said finally. They learn to hunt, to kill, to consume. But they also learn to protect, to teach, to sacrifice. They're predators, yes, but they choose what to be predators for. The shuttle met a council patrol 4 hours later. Rith and the others were rescued, treated, debriefed. He told them everything about the crash, about what he had learned. Some believed him. Others thought the trauma had confused him. 2 days later, and shuttle appeared at the patrol station. She was exhausted, her wounds poorly treated, but alive. The raiders had fled when she destroyed their command ship's engines. The Kalash vessel was secured. Rith met her at the docking bay. "You came. Promised to get you home, didn't I?" And smiled. "Besides, I need to file my survey report. Turns out that jungle planet has some very interesting wildlife." The council debated for weeks about what to do with the human who had single-handedly attacked a raider fleet. Some wanted her prosecuted for excessive violence. Others wanted her recruited for security forces. In the end, they simply thanked her and let her go. But word spread. The story of the human who consumed the beast, who taught the herbivore to fight, who rescued strangers without hesitation. Other species began to look at humans differently, not just as dangerous predators from a death world, but as potential allies worth having. Rith returned to his research, but he was changed. He carried a simple knife now and knew how to use it. He taught other Kalash about fire, about basic survival, about the value of practical knowledge. When asked why, he told them about, and years later, when the first formal alliance formed between Kalash and humanity, Rith stood as witness. He watched humans and his people work together, combining herbivore intellect with human adaptability. The ceremony. A reporter asked him when he had stopped fearing humans. Rith thought about and standing over the dead beast, explaining gratitude and respect. About her teaching him to survive in the jungle. About her walking into a raider ship alone to save his people. "I never stopped fearing what humans can do," he said honestly. "But I learned to trust what they choose to do. They're raised to survive, yes, to hunt and consume and fight. But they're also raised to protect those who can't protect themselves. That choice, that ability to be both predator and guardian, that's what makes them powerful. And you trust them." Rith smiled, thinking of a human woman on a jungle planet, sharing her kill and her fire with a stranger who needed help. "With my life, with all our lives, because I've seen what humans are when you become part of their pack. And what's that? Fierce, loyal, unstoppable." Rith looked at the humans and Kalash mingling in the hall, building something new together. They're raised that way, to consume the beast when they must, and to share the meal with those they've chosen to protect. The galaxy is better for having them in it. The reporter noted this down, not quite understanding. But Rith did. He carried his lessons with him always, the knowledge that strength without compassion was just violence, but compassion without strength was just words. Humans had both. And that made all the difference. Somewhere in the galaxy, and was probably teaching someone else to survive, to fight, to protect, passing down the human way to whoever needed it, building her pack one member at a time. And the universe, Rith thought, was slowly learning what it meant when a human decided you were worth protecting. A team meant you would never stand alone again.